What's going on, all you gamers? Here we are back with a little bit more Anvil Vault Breakers, and today what we're doing is a kind of tier list on what the best breakers in the game are currently. So if you want to know what some of the most powerful breakers are to use, then stay tuned, that's coming up next. Welcome back, all you guys and girls. As always, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, then why not hit that subscribe and bell icon? I'll bring you all the latest and greatest content, hints, tips, guides and builds, and just some fun gameplay and reviews of upcoming games. But for today I'm here to tell you what I believe are some of the strongest and best breakers in the game for you to be using. Now remember, this is based off my own opinion, so if you think I've got something completely wrong, then chuck it in the comments because I'd love to hear from you. But in general, from what I've seen of them so far, this is how I would rank them. So we're doing this December 2021, just before Christmas, so if you're watching this a little bit later on, there may be updates, there may be buffs, things might have changed, but for the moment this is how I'd say they are. So first off, we're going to kick it off with Toast, and he's going to be chucked all the way yonder, over into the B tier. So I've probably annoyed a few people right from the start. Toast is a very aggressive type of character. If you're playing him well, he will do an abundance of damage. He's very devastating and is probably one of the main classes you will be keeping with that flamer. Of course, in his skill upgrades he gets extra damage when he does do flame effect, and he can be getting his health back in a number of ways. However, I also find with him, because of his dash move, it's kind of a charge at the same time, often you find yourself in a little bit of trouble, and his dash is definitely not anywhere near as good as some of the others in the game, I found. He's definitely not bad as such, but I would honestly say he's one of the Vault Breakers that takes a little bit more getting used to and is a little bit harder to use wisely. Even though you can dish out a lot of damage, if you're not very versed in him, you may be falling over quite a bit. As such, for the moment, he's going to be chucked over into B rank. Next up, and we're going to be taking a look at Guillotine. Now Guillotine, I would say, falls very swiftly roundabout here, just above Toast in that A rank. He's a very durable character, absolutely crazy at getting those counter attacks, and if you're playing him properly, he probably isn't going to fall over anytime soon, if at all. He's one of the most hardy characters in the game, and he's definitely a tank for a reason. He's got one of the best ways to get his health back, because his counter attack, whenever he gets that fit guard, he's going to be getting an abundance of health back, and he can manage to get skill upgrades on top of that to make it even better. The only reason this guy falls a little bit short is his damage is a little bit on the low side compared to some of the other Vault Breakers out there, but his actual durability, survivability, anything to do with defense, he's really top notch, and especially for group play can be one of the best people in the game. Now coming up next, and we have Uzi. Uzi is quite a fun playstyle actually. I was debating on where to put her and was really thinking about chucking her over into the B tier. But after playing for a little bit longer and getting used to her a little bit more, I'd probably say she's going to jump up here, and she's in A tier as well. She's a little bit harder to get used to than some of the other classes, but that shield can really work in your favour, blocking all of those ranged attacks. You've just got to make sure you know what the bosses are going to do, because if you're staying in that shield and then they're going to do a big nuke underneath you, you may have a false pretense that you're safe and you actually fall over. But once you get versed in her and you kind of play into that mid-closer game, you're going to be doing a lot of damage to those bosses. You can have a lot of versatility. She's obviously got one move that makes her invincible when she's dashing about. She can be a very fun, very fast-paced class to use, but you'll definitely need to play with her for some time to get used to her and make sure you're quite in the enemy's face and getting used to being able to get out of there without falling over. Now coming up next, and probably going to upset a few people, but this guy I would say is leaps and bounds worse than probably all the others at the moment, and that is this guy right here, the Jungler. I was going to put him in C tier, but I actually think he's quite a bit worse than all of the other classes, so I'm going to chuck him just down here, all the way down yonder where nobody can hear him, over into the D ranks. The reason for that is he just doesn't do anything as good as the other classes. There's no real need for him in a team. He doesn't bring anything additional to the table that any of the other Vault Breakers couldn't do a little bit better. It seems like the developers already know about this, because in the next patch, I believe in a few weeks time, they're going to be giving him a big buff. So you may want to look out for this one, because he may be a lot better in a few weeks time than he is now. But for the moment, I would say he's not as survivable as a lot of the other breakers, and he just can't dish out quite as much damage as some of the others as well. So all in all, I probably would say at the moment, if you're playing, leave him well alone, wait for the update, see how he is. He may well be overpowered after that, but for the moment, unfortunately, he's all the way down there in D. And next breaker, I would say, is very possibly the best support in the game. And just from saying that, some of you have probably already realised that I'm talking about none other than this lady right here. If you can call a breaker lady, I don't know how it works because they're just kind of mechs. But yeah, this one right here, Shuri. Now, it was going to be straight up into S because I do think she is crazy good and she just benefits the team so much. However, because of one breaker at the moment, she's going to have to bop down to here, straight into the A rank. But she's very close to S. You may want to chuck her into S. I'm going to leave her here just for the moment, but she's definitely one of the best breakers in the game. I can see her bringing a lot of benefit to any team that you're using because she just helps them out so much. She's got quite a bit of damage, she's got versatility, she's got a very high powered weapon that she uses, she's also one of the best healers in the game, and of course she brings that massive buff to the team with their weapon speed. All in all, definitely, especially if you're trying to do a lot of weapon damage, she's one of the best ones to have in your group, and even solo, she's an absolute beast. Now the next one that we've got up, the next Vault Breaker should I say, I actually don't really know where I'm going to put her. I've not spent as much time with this breaker as a lot of the others. What I have played of her, she's very unique. She brings a bit to the table, but she's also very hard to master, and that's Bronte. I would honestly say, like I said, I haven't played with her as much as others, so if you think I'm completely wrong, chuck it in the comments. But for myself, I'd say she's very much borderline between B and C. She's definitely not as overpowered as some of the others, but also I have played in a group with one of her and another one that was playing as Shuri just up here, and we absolutely decimated the last boss of Campanella. So if you're good with her, I would probably say she'll jump straight up to here, but if you're not, I would say she's probably down here. She's very hard to master, she's nowhere near as easy point and click as some of the others, and her skill set is, like I said, quite unique and one you've got to get used to. It can do a lot of damage when you're shooting at those orbs and then trying to explode them, and she can do a bit of healing. If she's completely maxed out, I could see her definitely raising up the ranks with someone who's very versed in her and able to play her well. For myself, I'd say she's a C at the moment just because she takes a bit more getting used to and is a lot harder to play than a lot of the other breakers. For our next breaker, we've got another quite unique support one, and that's Elsa. I actually really like Elsa. Everything in my body wants me to put it higher, but she's just not as good as you want her to be at the moment. She is one of the only breakers that actually has defense down, or 100% defense break should I say at the moment. That does make her quite good in some team builds. But again, she just doesn't seem to be able to dish out as much as damage as some of the others. I would say probably, again, if you're good with her, maybe a B. If not, she's down here at C. I really like her. I'm hoping she gets a slight buff because, as with a lot of summoner builds, they tend to not be quite as good with the old DPS and not quite as good as some of the others in most games. She's definitely not rubbish, she has a lot going on, she's a good support, but if you had a support on your team currently, you'd probably want Shuri as opposed to Bronte or Elsa. Also, her starting weapon I feel probably should have a little bit of a buff as well. Those homing handguns, they're not bad, but it does tend to be that you'd rather just have the rifle because then you're going to hit all of those targets at a bit of range and not have to worry about things quite as much, because she definitely doesn't seem like she wants to be in people's face too much because she's still a little bit on the squishy side. And speaking of squishy, we probably have the squishiest character in the game up next. He definitely doesn't like getting hit, and that is Lightning. With him being so squishy, you would probably think he's going to jump down to around about here. However, if you've played the game whatsoever, you're going to know he is the one and only S rank above all else, because he is an absolute beast. He has some of the best, if not the best damage currently. His weapon will always hit its target with its homing bullets. He is very hard to get hit because he has a lot more dodges than most of the other characters. He just does an abundance of everything right. In fact, if you spec into his build correctly, he can be doing hundreds of thousands to millions of damage upon those bosses at endgame. He's one of the most fun, but least durable in the game. But like I said, most times you're going to be able to dodge out of the way of things, and in some builds, in most builds probably, you don't worry about his health too much and just spec pure into damage. There are a few things going on in the works again. They're going to change a few of the relics that make some of his builds really powerful, so we'll have to see how he is a little bit further down the line. But for the moment, for his overall damage, what he brings to the team, and the fact that he's just able to clear everything a lot faster and a lot easier than pretty much any of the other builds, he's definitely the one that I would say is above all else at the moment. Now this fella, I want to put him in S rank. I really want to put him in S rank. I'm going to say he's between an A and an S. He's definitely, in my opinion, the best tank in the game. He's just so good. But also, the Mountain can get caught out quite easily, and that's because his big boy damage always comes from his free overhead slams. When you're doing that, if you've spec'd yourself out right and you're facing against those big tough enemies in some of the later worlds, you can be doing millions of damage. But during that time, that's when you're in trouble. If they do any kind of a move onto you, you're going to fall over. So he does need to be kind of spec'd into really well, and he does need a bit of guard about himself. But if you're playing him correctly and if you're good with him, I would say very possibly he's up here with Lightning. He's really that good. He's probably my favourite tank in the game. I think he's just one of the best looking ones and the best ones all round with his moves. But like I said, a couple of his skills can get him in trouble. One of them knocks you back and sometimes you'll go into a laser, and the other one, like I said, is the one that if you're using it, it's your big boy damage source, but can also catch you out a little bit if they're going to do a move anywhere near that time. So you will be blocking with him a lot more than probably some of the other tanks such as Guillotine, or even our next one coming up, which is this fella just here, and that's Rush. Now Rush, I wasn't sure where to put. I honestly haven't played with him as much as the others, and I'm really thinking about putting him down here. But I think I'm going to get way too many comments if I do, so I'm going to put him up here just because I haven't played with him quite as much, like I said, as some of the others. Also, when I did play with him, I noticed that he's nigh on unkillable. Just absolutely going to town and punching your enemies most times will see you through because you've got that health regen. You obviously do have to worry about the one-shots and such, but you're just going to jump behind for that, or just going to make sure that you go through them with your other skill. He's really good, really durable, and absolutely crazy, probably one of the best ones for that health regen. However, when I played with him, I found that he wasn't quite as damaging as some of the others. Definitely not on the scale of the Mountain, but a good one to use, and probably someone I'd need to get a little bit better at to master in order to see if he was a B or an A. But for the moment, I'm going to put him as A. If any of you guys and girls have got any difference, let me know, because it may well be that you put him in the B or even somewhere completely different. Coming up next, and we've got this fella right here, and that's Liner. He, I think, again, is almost up in the A, but I'm going to have to bop him down here at the moment. I feel like, again, he might need a slight adjustment. Some of his skills are a little bit on the funky side, should we say. You have to play quite safely with him. His mines are obviously laid on the floor, very close range, more so than you would think they should be. But this guy is actually quite a powerhouse with his damage. If you like missiles, if you like shooting one absolute big missile, and if you like any kind of explosions going off, this may well be the guy for you. Definitely worth a try, as with some builds he's actually quite exceptional. One thing I would definitely recommend with this guy, if you can, try to get his 100% crit when he lays those actual mines, and then don't spec into them at all. Instead go into the other skills and his gun damage, and you'll do a ridiculous amount of overall DPS. The mines, I think, are a little bit on the not that good side, shall we say. The other two skills are very good, and all in all he's a pretty fun class to use, does high damage, and I'd say is also quite beginner friendly. He's got a bit of range to him, and I feel is one of the easier breakers to use overall, so it may well be worth your time to give him a little look. Now last but definitely not least, however, one of the harder ones again to use, and I'd say it's Sandman. I really am in two minds about whether to put him on C or on B. but I would say probably bops just around here with these other two. If you manage to spec him out right, you're going to do an abundance of damage. Petrified targets are definitely going to be the way forward, and you can do a lot of damage with your skills. However, his dashes aren't very good, and I found myself falling over with him an awful lot. He's not as survivable as some of the other classes, which is quite odd because on one of his skills he actually generates a shield for himself. Also, it can go to the whole team. Unfortunately, it's on an absolutely massive cooldown. If you've got a way to make this a little bit lower and you can get that shield very constant, I could probably see him rising up the ranks a little bit. However, on my playthroughs, most times I still found myself falling over with him. Very similar in style to probably Toast. He was a little bit harder to play and get out of situations that I would with other breakers. If however you've mastered this character, it may be completely different, and like I said, it does seem to be that shield could well help you out. And most of the times I found myself really wanting to use his shotgun at close range because it did a great amount of damage, or just hit him with my grenades, but half of the time I was running away with him. Now, like I said, I have not played with a few of these as much as the others, and he is definitely one of them. But when I did play with him, I was not very good. He's a little bit of a niche character, and one that you're definitely going to have to get really used to his certain playstyle. But all in all, I found myself falling over with him a lot more than some of the other breakers. If you can make him work, he'll probably jump up there into the A tier. For me, I'm going to keep him with B tier, because I think he's probably around the same lines as Toast and Liner. Right, you gamers, that's my tier list for the moment. Like I said, things will change, and this is just my personal opinion. So if you've got any differences, which I am sure 100% that a lot of you will have, then chuck it in the comments. But as always, for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, take care. I'll see you on the next day.